is live on YouTube. This meeting is live on
This
YouTube.
is live on YouTube.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I feel like I'm Michael Jackson.
Oh, sir. Oh, sir. आपके चाहने वाले बहुत हैं, सर. Okay, doctor. Okay, professor. Start the meeting, sir.
Yes.
सर शेखर सर ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं सर.
Okay, please join it, sir.
हाँ सर एडमिट कर दिया हूँ.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. तो जीवन सर आप थोड़ा देखते रहिएगा, सभी को पार्टिसिपेंट्स को हो सके तो म्यूट कर लीजिएगा आप.
जी 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 सर वो मैं देख रहा हूँ. जी
参会人才15人，我是不是进的太早了？哦，还有。
नमस्कार शेखर सर. ओके सर. ओके सर, आप सभी को नमस्ते, प्रणाम, नमस्ते. आप सभी को भारत की तरफ से बहुत बहुत नमस्ते सभी को. जस्ट गोइंग स्टार्ट मीटिंग. वेरी गुड इवनिंग टू अवर रेस्पेक्टिव गेस्ट, स्पीकर, प्रोफेसर, रिसर्च स्कॉलर, स्टूडेंट्स, and who were directly joined this webinar. We are obliged under the aegis of Forum of Commerce and Management Studies. Before starting the meeting, we discussion about our forum. This forum was established by all of us together in 2020 February during pandemic. The aim of this forum is to reach online education to as many people as possible. This forum chairman, Dr. Shekhar Sharma, is a renowned professor of accounting and finance, NRC College, Khurja, affiliated to CCS University, Meerut. I am the secretary of this forum, Associate Professor, Finance and Management, DPBS College, Anupshahr, affiliated to CCS University, Meerut, and Joint Secretary of this forum, Srimati Trapti Singh. She has assistant lecture, Government College, Sambhal, a lot of achievement which has major Indo, Nepal, Harmony International Award and Vishnu Guru Award. And convener of this seminar, Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala, the Associate Professor of Commerce and Management, Cuttack, Odisha. And co-convener of this seminar, Dr. Professor Manish Kumar Agarwal from UK, our International Advisory Board, Professor S.L. Gupta, Professor and Dean of Muscat, Oman, Dr. Gagan Kumar Kukreja, Professor of Accounting, Bahrain, Dr. Sameer Rohadia, renowned data scientist, Germany, Dr. Sanjay Sharma, Director, T-Mobile, USA, Dr. Saad Amjad Khan, Professor of Management, Oman, Dr. Rajneesh Ratan, Professor of Management, Bhutan, Dr. V.K. Gangal, Professor of Finance, Agra, India, Dr. K.U.M. Nayak, Director, Lakshmi Vidyapeeth, Gujarat, India, Dr. Kamlesh Bharadwaj, Professor of Sociology, UP, India, Dr. G. Vijaya Lakshmi, Professor of Commerce, Jharkhand, India, Dr. Smita Suresh Giri, Professor of Chemistry, Maharashtra, India, Dr. Parth Kumar Nara, Professor of History, Assam, Dr. Sachendra A. Kalur, Professor of Physical Education, Karnataka, India, Dr. Neeraj Upadhyay, Professor of Math, UP, India, Dr. Nitin Goyal, Professor of Management, Oman, Dr. Abdul Qayyum Masood, Associate Professor of Management, Bangladesh, and Dr. M. Muzaffar Rahman, Associate Professor of Business and Accounting, Malaysia. Today's topic of international webinar, Research Misconduct, 3 case study, and today's keynote speaker, renowned Professor Dr. Liu Lee Chiu Kyong, Program Director, Kim V School of Communication and Information, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, will provide knowledge of research misconduct. Before starting the meeting, हम सब प्रे माँ सरस्वती, प्रे टू माँ सरस्वती, जस्ट गोइंग ऑन प्रे टू माँ सरस्वती.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा. शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमा आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनीं वीणापुस्तकधारिणीम् अभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहा. हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीं पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्.
जानकी माता माँ सरस्वती को बहुत बहुत प्रणाम करते हुए कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हैं. About Professor Lee is currently working as the Associate Chair, Student and Program Director, MSc Information Studies of Kim V School of Communication and Information, Nanyang Technological University. He has earned his PhD on Knowledge Management from Nanyang University, Singapore in 2008. He also earned gold medal for Master of Science Information Studies. He brings with him a rich experience of in academia. He has his credit many publications in national and international journals. He has published several books chapters. He has contributed many research paper in area of specialization for many nationally and internationally accepted journals. He has also presented paper and organized conferences and workshops. Professor Lee is a very good professor.
Yes.
And yes, sir. Sir, now I would like to call Professor Lee to start the session. Professor Lee, sir.
All right. Good evening and greetings from Singapore. I am really honored to be here. I'm also very glad to be here. I have to thank Professor Gupta for the invitation to speak. I also thank Professor Tarun also for inviting me to speak at this conference. I'm very, very honored and very, very glad to be here. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, today I will be talking about research misconduct, and specifically I will be talking about 3 case studies. All right, so let's begin. Without further ado, let's begin. Okay, and I will begin with a story. right? I will just begin with a very, very simple story. And in fact, I will begin with two versions of the same story. So it's two versions of exactly the same story. The first version is very short. The first version is only one slide long. And the second version is long. All right, so let's get on with the story. So this is the story. In 1923, these two gentlemen, Frederick Banting and John McLeod, were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine for the discovery of insulin. You know, if you're a diabetic, you know very, very well what insulin is. All right, insulin is really required by all of us to metabolize glucose. So in 1923, these two gentlemen were awarded the Nobel Prize for their discovery of insulin. And you know, the discovery of insulin is really, really an important one in the field of medicine because it revolutionized the therapy and prognosis of diabetes, one of the diseases most studied in the history of medicine, right? You will see many diabetics today. In fact, there are more diabetics than ever today because of our diets, because of our reticence. We don't, you know, we're sedentary nature of our work. We are sedentary. We sit down. Even when we teach today, we don't walk about. We sit in front of a computer and look at a little tiny camera in front of the computer. So, you know, we lead a very sedentary lifestyle today. And I think this also is going to contribute to diabetes. But anyway, this is the short version of the story. Just one slide. In 1923, two people, Banting and McLeod, were awarded the Nobel Prize because they discovered insulin. Insulin then went on to revolutionize the therapy and prognosis of diabetes. Now let's go on to the long version. The long version is very, very long because it starts in 1552 BC. That's something like 3,500 years ago. So the long version of the story is really, really, really long. It starts about this year, 1552 BC. And in 1552 BC, this document was written. All right, this document, this very, very interesting looking document, it looks rather scholarly actually. And this document is called the Ebers Papyrus. All right, that's the name of the document. It's called the Ebers Papyrus. And this document is the first known medical reference to diabetes mellitus in the whole world. So if you search the world through for the first mention of diabetes, this is the document that first mentions it. All right, it's called the Ebers Papyrus. So in 1552 BC, one doctor, you know, he must have asked a scribe to write out this particular document. And, you know, in the 19th century, this document was found and it was given the name Ebers Papyrus. We know it today to be the very, very first time somebody ever wrote about diabetes. Now we press the, forward button in our time machine, in our time travel machine. We press a forward button from 1552 BC to 1869. Now in 1869, this guy by the name of Paul Langerhans, he made a very careful and detailed description of the microscopic structure of the pancreas. So he dissected cadavers, he dissected dogs, and he took out the pancreas and he put it under the microscope, and he came up with a detailed description of the microscopic structure. Now he described 9 different types of cells from his observations through the microscope. He described 9 different types of cells, including small, irregularly shaped cells measuring something like 0.1 to 0.24 millimeters in diameter. And that's why he needed the microscope. He saw these cells irregular in shape throughout the gland. So this happened in 1869. Now, 1888, Paul Langerhans dies. All right, he dies. He describes the cells in 1869, and in 1888, that was it for him. He dies of a kidney infection in Funchal, Madeira. And, for those who are interested in football, Funchal, Madeira is where Ronaldo is from. All right, he is from there. He was born there. I think he was raised there as well. Anyway, for the purpose of our story, in 1888, Paul Langerhans died of a kidney infection there. Now, in 1893, 5 years after Paul Langerhans died, this other guy by the name of Gustav named these spots that Paul Langerhans spotted. This other guy by the name of Gustav, he named these spots Eliots de Langerhans, or in English, the islets of Langerhans. Langerhans died, Paul Langerhans died without ever knowing he was honored in science. All right, he died already, and he never knew that his name, was used to name these islets of Langerhans. So he also demonstrated that pancreatic secretions came out from the islets of Langerhans, and he suggested that the lack of an unknown secretion from the pancreas led to diabetes. So this Gustav guy, he decides to name these cells that he's, Langerhans spotted. He decides to honor Langerhans by calling it the islets of Langerhans. And he also made a guess that, this islets of Langerhans must be producing some sort of a juice, some sort of an unknown secretion. And the lack of this unknown secretion led to diabetes. We press the forward button in our time travel machine again, and we travel to 1909. All right, in 1909, a previously lean, very skinny, very healthy, 29-year-old, 186 centimeter tall man presented himself to his general practitioner. So you can imagine this guy. This guy is a young man. He's just 29 years old. He is also thin. He is also tall. 186 cm is more than 6 feet tall. So he goes to his GP, he goes to his general practitioner with a 3-month history of polydipsia, polyuria, and weight loss, symptoms of diabetes. The doctor takes a urine sample and tells, the urine sample shows that this man, this thin, 29-year-old, 6-footer, was diabetic. So the doctor told him, very, very sadly that his life expectancy was very limited, and he told this 29-year-old that he should make arrangements. He should go back and he should make arrangements. He should make arrangements because his time is near. He was going to die already very, very soon. So that man, this 29-year-old man, must have been really, really, really affected by this. Anyone would be affected by this, okay? So what told the doctor that he was diabetic? His urine sample. Okay, now why did the doctor tell him to make arrangements? All right, this is something very serious, and doctors don't simply tell their patients, hey, go and make arrangements. All right, but this doctor told this 29-year-old young man, tall, lanky, thin young man, to go and make arrangements. Now the doctor told this patient to make arrangements because this was the life expectancy of diabetics at that time. Now, diabetes was discovered in something like 1922. So these two bars here indicate the life expectancy before insulin was discovered, the black bars. All right, therefore it's pre-insulin era. The gray bars indicate the life expectancy of a person after insulin was already discovered. And you can see, how different this is. If you were age 10 and, you got insulin in 1914 or to 1922, you've got 2.6 years to live, That's terrible. That's terrible news. And remember, this guy here was a 29-year-old. So it would be this set of bars here at age 30, right? He was 29. So he was informed that he was a diabetic, and so he had, if you look at this bar B here, he had 6.3 years to live. That was it, Very, very sad news. All right, and that's why his GP, that's why his general practitioner, his doctor, told him, go back and make arrangements. Go back and prepare yourself. Go back and write your will. Go back and transfer your bank account. Right? The life expectancy of diabetics before insulin was discovered was dismal. Insulin made such a difference. You can see the jump from here right up to here. Insulin made the difference. Right after insulin was discovered, the life expectancy jumped from 2.6 years to 14.3. After that, it went to 31.7. After that, it went to 9.8. After that, it went to 45 years, the expectation of life. Amazing. Amazing. So that, insulin was a really, really, really very important discovery in medicine. Now, so here, you might want we know about this guy's case. We know about this 29-year-old man's case because his great-grandson and his grandson wrote about him in a journal called Diabetologia. All right, even the journal is difficult to pronounce. It's Diabetologia. All right, so his case was written up in 2007 by his great-grandson and by his grandson. All right, so they wanted to write this article to, describe what diabetic life was before and after the insulin era. Anyway, let's zoom on further. Let's still press our forward button in our time travel machine to 1913. In 1913, these two doctors, Frederick Allen and Elliot Joslin, introduced starvation dieting to treat diabetics. All right, so this starvation dieting is really very, 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 very cruel. I would say it's really cruel, all right, because it's a treatment which involves severe fasting and undernutrition to prolong the lives of diabetic patients. All right, can you imagine to cure a patient of diabetes? These two doctors induce severe fasting. It's really, really, really very cruel. Right? They are very hungry. The patients are weak. And some of the patients did starve to death. So fasting usually reduces glucose levels in diabetics, but prolonged calorie-restricted diets introduce new sorts of hazards, most obviously death by starvation. And some of the patients, some of Frederick Allen and Elliot Joslin's patients did starve to death. All right, so, and let's go on further to 1920s, and here we are in early 1920s. Teams in different countries were working on the relationship between the pancreas and diabetes. Scientists already knew by that time that there was some sort of a relationship, some sort of a connection between the pancreas and the diabetes. And much of this work in the different countries entailed the removal of the pancreas from dogs, specifically to induce diabetics in the dogs. That was how early research into diabetes was carried out. Remove the pancreas from the dogs to make the dogs diabetic. All right. Now, what scientists already knew at that time, so what scientists knew by the early 1920s was this. All right. They knew two things. The first thing that scientists knew at that time was this: the pancreas produced more than one chemical. It didn't produce just insulin, it produced a whole cocktail of chemicals, not just one chemical. The second thing that scientists already knew by the early 1920s was this: the one lacking in diabetes patients was manufactured in the area of the pancreas known as the islets of Langerhans. So these two facts were already established. So, the three challenges by the early 1920s was this. The three challenges for scientists was this. The first one was the identification of the active chemicals. So here, they found out that the pancreas produced a cocktail of chemicals, a whole mix of chemicals. So the first challenge was the identification of that single active chemical, right? The second one was, after the identification of the active chemical, it had to be separated from the other chemicals in that cocktail of chemicals. The third one was the development of a method of administering this active chemical in the gradual way the body needs. So the number one here is, what is the chemical? The second one is how to separate the chemical from the other chemicals. The third one is how to administer this chemical to a human being that's diabetic. All right. So in 1921, 1922, this was happening at the University of Toronto. All right, this was what was happening. On October 31st, 1920, Frederick Banting was really a doctor. He wasn't really a researcher. He was a doctor. So he conceived of a way of extracting the active chemical successfully. He was thinking, how do I extract this active chemical? How do I separate it from the other chemicals that are not useful? So he conceived of an idea, and he approached kind of like his boss, all right, the head of the University of Toronto Physiology Department. And his boss was John McLeod, a Scottish. McLeod said, okay, Banting, you have a nice idea. You have a great idea. I'm going to give you lab space. All right, you need some lab space to perform all these experiments. I'm going to give you a lab space. I'm going to give you a few dogs because, you know, if you're doing pancreatic research, if you're doing anything to do with diabetes, research to do with diabetes, you need a couple of dogs. So I'm going to give you lab space. I'm going to give you dogs. And hey, you need some help too. So I'm going to give you a research student, Charles Best. So this boss was a nice boss, you know. He didn't discourage Banting from this research. He encouraged Banting, and in fact, he also gave him some resources, lab space, a few dogs, as well as even some help in the form of a research student. All right, so if we look at the discovery of insulin, the discovery of insulin was, all happened at the University of Toronto. So if you look at the discoverers of insulin, you will see Banting. Now, who's Banting here? Banting is this guy who conceived of an idea of how to extract the chemical successfully. McLeod was his boss. All right, his boss was Scottish, and Charles Herbert Best was the research assistant. And you can see that Charles Herbert Best is really, really young. These two guys look kind of a little older than him. All right, now let's go on. So this guy gets the idea. The bulb here shows that he gets the idea of how to extract the chemical. This guy gives, this is the manager, you know. This is Professor Gupta here. All right, he gives the resources, he gives the money, he gives the lab space, he gives the dogs, and this guy is, you know, the student research assistant here. All right, all right, after this guy, McLeod gives Banting all these resources, he goes back to Scotland for a holiday. Now, don't you think this photo is nice? I didn't take this photo. This photo comes from the internet, but this photo is a photo of Scotland apparently. And one day I hope to go. Anyway, I understand from this photo why John McLeod would want to go back to Scotland, because it's so beautiful. So he left for Scotland and left Banting to do his work. Now, the research, while McLeod was holidaying in this beautiful land, the first research article was published. So Banting and Best immediately went to work, and, you know, they produced the first research article. They were rather productive. They produced the first research article. They explained how they had always observed a distinct improvement in the clinical condition of diabetic dogs after administration of extract of degenerated pancreas. It is clear from their notebooks and the difficulty later scientists had in reproducing their results. Later scientists tried to reproduce their results. It was clear that Banting and Best were highly selective in which experiments they included in the paper. All right. Successes were exaggerated and failures sometimes quickly ignored. So they had a whole slew of results. They started cherry picking. Some results were nice. Let's publish these. Some results aren't so nice. Let's throw them away. And here we have the first instance of research misconduct. Selecting which results to include and selecting which results to exaggerate and selecting which ones to ignore. Of course, the failures, nobody wants to know. So let's ignore these things. The points that don't fit the curve, let's ignore those things. Who knows, you know, if we delete 1 or 2 points, all right, if we put a bit of Tipex, if we put a bit of whitener on our results, who will know, right? So here, you know, they were very selective on what they wanted to include in their research paper. When they were successful, they exaggerated it. When they failed, the instances where they failed, they just ignored the thing. They kept quiet. Now, McLeod, you know, after, you know, holidaying in this beautiful land called Scotland, he returns to the University of Toronto. All right, and you can see this beautiful campus. It's a fantastically beautiful campus of the University of Toronto. Anyway, McLeod, when he returns, he was aghast. He was shocked. All right, and he was shocked because he found that the experiments were very badly executed. He said, gosh, this is terrible. All right, the experiments were very badly executed, and he found the results were unreliable. So he decided to send a WhatsApp message. He decided to take his handphone out and send a WhatsApp message to this guy called James Collett. All right, and James Collett was called in to kind of refine the experiment. All right, I'm of course exaggerating things. They didn't have WhatsApp at the time. All right. Now, in any case, so James Collett comes into the picture. So let's see their contributions. This guy gets the idea of how to extract insulin. This guy is the boss, all right, and he provides, you know, the dogs and the lab space and the research assistant. This guy is the research assistant that was provided to help good at getting very, you know, he's good at extracting the active ingredient. So this was the state in 1921. Now in comes Leonard Thompson on December the 2nd, 1921. This boy, 14 years old, just a boy only, his name was Leonard Thompson. He arrived at the emergency of the Toronto General Hospital. Remember, all this action, all this, you know, hoo-ha took place at the University of Toronto. All right, so a boy, you know, imagine the emergency department, a boy is wheeled in, he's 14 years old, he's moribund, he's near death, you know. So on 11 January 1922, the first clinical trial was performed on Leonard Thompson. The father must have been desperate. If you are the father of this boy, you would be desperate because he's dying already. He's near death. All right. If they don't do anything, he was definitely going to die. So he was wheeled in December the 2nd, 1921. A month later, a month and a half later, they decided that, okay, no hope for him. Let's just inject this insulin into him. Now, unfortunately for the boy, the results were very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. The father must have been, you know, heartbroken. Now, the cause was this. James Collett discovered that, you know, the cause was because the extract didn't have enough purity. This was the reason why the results were disappointing, because the extract, the purity of the extract was not sufficiently high. So James Collett came in, concentrated on improving the extraction and purification of the active compound and produced a high quality extract. This is what he did. He produced a high quality extract, and a second attempt was made on Leonard Thompson, the 14-year-old boy. So 2 weeks later, Leonard underwent a second series of insulin injections, and the results were stunning. Why were they stunning? Because James Collett came in to increase the purification level of the active compound. Leonard Thompson's life was saved by insulin, and he became insulin's poster boy. Every time they needed someone to advertise insulin, to you know, advertise the benefits of insulin, they used Leonard Thompson. All right, understandably, because he was the first patient. So, you know, on 3rd May 1923, the discovery of insulin was announced to the medical world. Announced, we have insulin, it is successful, we have tried it, you know, come and test it yourself. So here in 1923, these two people were awarded the Nobel Prize. Banting, because he had the idea of how to purify insulin, and McLeod, because he gave the resources. He gave a lot of resources and ideas of how to do it. Now, Best only graduated in 1925. You know, when the Nobel Prizes were given, Best had not got his degree yet, you know. He only graduated in 1925. And Collett, the guy who purified it, the guy who improved the purity to a level which saved Leonard Thompson, didn't get anything. All right, he was in fact forgotten. Now, the 1923 Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine really is very stunning. You know, it's very, very stunning because it's the fastest. Some people take decades to get, decades after their discovery to get their Nobel Prize, you know, decades. Now, these guys were, you know, kind of like super fast, you know. Look at what happened. In 1921, Leonard Thompson arrives. 1922, you know, they do the first trial. 1922 again, you know, second trial, the results were stunning. Okay, all right, some sound effects there. All right, let's get back. Okay, now in 1922 itself, Leonard Thompson underwent a second trial, and the results were stunning. And in 1923, the discovery of insulin was announced to the medical world. Look here, this is very, very important. Keep this date in your mind. 1923, the discovery of insulin was announced to the medical world. And in 1923, these guys were awarded the Nobel Prize, the same year as the announcement of insulin to the medical world. So it's really fast, really super fast. And if you look at the awardees, they were among the youngest ever to be awarded the Nobel Prize. All right. So after this Nobel Prize, that's where trouble began. That's where trouble began, and that's where trouble creeped into the whole story. All right. So let's see what happened. Now, you know, McLeod was Banting's boss. McLeod was the guy who gave Banting the lab space, the dogs, the research assistant, and all that. And Banting, you know, he was thinking and he said, gosh, I'm awarded the Nobel Prize. And who is the other person who got awarded together with me? My boss. All right. And he's thinking, when people look at me and my boss, they will think that my boss is the main guy. I'm his assistant and all that. Now, Banting preferred to win the Nobel Prize with Bess, the research assistant, not McLeod, because he was really worried that McLeod will take all the glory. All right. He was worried that McLeod will take all the glory because he was the boss. Right. So here, Banting slowly wrote McLeod and Collip out of the picture. All right. He slowly, at interviews when the newspapers came, when the reporters came to interview him and all that kind of stuff, he slowly, sidelined McLeod and sidelined Collip. Banting emphasized the quality of the results he had obtained when working without the help of McLeod and Collip. He wanted the glory to himself, And Canadians, they were told, they read that insulin was discovered by Banting and Bess. Why was Banting doing this? Banting was doing this because he didn't want to be associated with his boss, because he was really, really afraid. He was very worried that all the glory would go to his boss, So here, the Banting Research Foundation was established in 1925. You can see the speed of things. 1922 were the trials, clinical trials. 1923 announced to the world. 1923, the Nobel Prize. 1925, the Banting Research Foundation was established to honor Banting. And Bess was the research student. Bess was only the research student. No, this is Bess, the research student, the research assistant. And he only got his degree in 1925. Now, Bess, he too felt that he deserved a research institute. Can you imagine this? A person just graduated from the university and wants a research institute in his name already. All right. So this was the situation. All right. And by that time, let's go on further in the story. McLeod died. All right. McLeod died. And after that, unfortunately, World War II starts. And when World War II starts, Banting also died. He died in a plane crash. All right. He died in a plane crash. All right. During World War II. All right. While working on war activities. So these two are dead. This Collip guy is kind of a quiet guy. He didn't want to disturb anything. He didn't want to say anything. So you can see that he's a quiet guy. The only guy left was the research student. And look at these people. All these fellows are rather old. This is the youngest guy. So let's see what Bess did. Now, when Banting died, Banting and McLeod died, they were both associated with the University of Toronto. The University of Toronto president was thinking, hey, my goodness, my two superstars, my Michael Jackson and Mariah Carey. I have Michael Jackson's, in my faculty, they are dead. All right. So how to, extract this benefit of this glory of having discovered insulin for a longer time? All right. The thing was this: the discovery of insulin had brought the University of Toronto fame and glory, and Bess had died. McLeod had died, and Banting had died in a plane crash. And having Bess replace Banting was the most effective way that the president could see extending this fame and glory. He really, really wanted a university to have the fame and glory of having discovered insulin. So what what the president did was to replace Banting with Bess. All right, the departmental chair was empty because Banting had already died in a plane crash, so he replaced Banting with Bess. So, you know, you really cannot imagine how much glory this brought to University of Toronto and Canada. Now, if you look at a $100 bill, you will see very closely, if you look very closely here, you will see that there's a bottle of insulin there. There's a bottle of insulin. It's that important. It's that glorious. It's that prestigious. It's so important that it had to be featured on a $100 bill. All right. And that was what the University of Toronto president was thinking of. Okay, that my two best researchers are dead. How do I extend this glory? How do I extend this fame? So the best way was get Bess and replace Banting. So forward some more, 25th anniversary of the discovery of insulin. All right, Bess is the only surviving member of the team. He makes a speech, and in his speech he states, as Banting had stated very clearly, we began work in partnership. They did not work in partnership, you know. Banting was the main guy. Banting was the principal investigator. Bess was merely the research assistant. All right, but in his speech, he claimed that they work in partnership, as if both of them were principal investigators, right? Indeed, that was the only possible relationship when both of us were without a stipend and each was responsible for a definite aspect of the research, which was not true. All right, let me stress, Banting was the principal investigator. So he claimed in his speech, it is difficult to imagine a closer working arrangement than that which developed between us. So you can see that Bess, because he outlives all of them, he begins to rewrite the story to his favor. All right? He begins to rewrite the story in his favor to start claiming glory. Now, at the official opening of the Bess Institute, he gets his wish at last. There is a Bess Institute at last, all right, in his name. Now, at the official opening of the Bess Institute, a researcher by the name of Henry Dale makes another speech, and he says, the collaboration was to be one of intimate understanding with no question between the two participants of any but equal sharing of its success, which is not true. All right, Henry Dale was told a lie. He was told, a fib. All right, McLeod, still quite naturally skeptical of any successful outcome to the enterprise, left Toronto for a holiday in Europe so that it was in an otherwise deserted department that the two young and inexperienced but determined enthusiasts solved the main problem without further aid from or communication with anybody. That's complete fabrication, because McLeod came back from Scotland and found things in a mess. All right, he found things in a mess, and he repaired the experimental procedure and so on and so forth, and he brought in Collip to help in with the purification of the insulin. And here it's claimed, Bess and Banting solved the main problem without further aid from or communication with anybody. So you can see that the lies were already getting out of hand. Not just Bess was, the lies were not just spread by Bess. They were also told to Henry Dale, and Henry Dale trusted Bess and started, spreading these two. Now the problem was this, if you are opening a research institute, there would be reporters. If you are talking to your friend and say that, hey, friend, I discovered insulin, that may be okay, because it's just your friend. But this was said in a speech at the official opening of a research institute, and there were reporters. And because there were reporters, these blatant falsehoods and egregious exaggerations were now being committed to the newspaper. It's a public record. These newspapers would be archived, for the rest of history. People would be able to consult these newspapers. They were starting to be committed to public record. It wasn't told to friends anymore. It wasn't just told to family members anymore. It was committed to a document, a newspaper. Now, what was terrible for them was the National Film Board of Canada. This was like the broadcasting authority of Canada. In 1954, they decided to make a film about the discovery of insulin. Remember, Canada was really proud of their researchers, so they wanted to make a film about the discovery, and they had a writer, and the writer was Leslie McFarlane, and this writer was really careful. This writer went to do his homework, and so the writer went back to consult the primary records, all the lab notebooks, all the communication, all the letters, all the lab data, and so on, because he was going to, produce a film, right? Produce a documentary. Now, what he found was that Bess had been lying, and the National Film Board of Canada decided not to film the documentary because if they filmed the documentary, then they would be offending quite a number of people in Canadian science. So you can see, the lie came back and bit Bess. All right. So what happened to Mr. Brostoff? Remember Mr. Brostoff? Mr. Brostoff was mentioned in the early part of this lecture. This was the 28 or 28-year-old man, I think, who was a 6-footer. He survived until insulin was discovered, and he was one of the first patients to receive insulin. He survived for a further 50 years. This is the impact of what insulin had on mankind. It really improved a lot of mankind. All right. Now, if you look at these two photos, this is a photo of a girl, of a child that was diabetic, pre-insulin era. And after insulin, you look at this, much more healthy. This is, so skinny. Why? Because she had gone through the starvation dieting. And that's why you see this. All right. It's all sunken. It's very thin, and you can see the bones. All right. After insulin, this is the same girl. It's unbelievable, but this is the same girl. You can see that it's a lot more. There's a lot more flesh, and things are looking up a lot better for this particular patient. All right, this is the impact that insulin had on diabetics, So, what is science? Science is a body of knowledge. All right. Now, science is also a human activity. It's not just a body of knowledge. Yes, it is a body of knowledge, and it is subdivided into chemistry, it's divided into physics, it's divided into biology, into geology, into biochemistry, into physical chemistry, and so on. So science is a body of knowledge, but science is also a human activity. And, the thing is this, science generally only recognizes the last person holding the baton. So, if you remember the early parts of this lecture, in 1552 BC, somebody wrote about diabetes in this papyrus called the Ebers Papyrus. Now that guy's forgotten. If you ask, people who was Paul Langerhans, they'll say, who's this guy? Who's this guy, Paul Langerhans? Who cares about Paul Langerhans? All right, nobody knows Paul Langerhans because he wasn't the last person holding the baton. The last person holding the baton was Banting and McLeod. And that's why Banting and McLeod got the Nobel Prize. So science is a body of knowledge. It's a human activity. It only generally recognizes the last person holding the baton and the first person across the finishing line. Very, very important. 5 teams, 10 teams, 20 teams could have been working on insulin. That doesn't matter because the first person across the finishing line gets the glory. So let's look at the human condition. Because science is a human activity, the human condition comes in, and the human condition, contains these elements: the elements of jealousy, envy, pride, bias, sabotage, greed, selfishness, fraud, impatience, ambition, recklessness, laziness, vanity. And you can see some of these elements in the story I told. In the story I told about Banting and McLeod and the research student Bess, who tried his very best to get glory. But at last, it came back to bite him because the National Film Board of Canada, when they did their research, they found that, hey, this guy is really lying, man. We cannot make this documentary. We absolutely cannot make it because we cannot produce the documentary because we have been told a bunch of lies. Now, some other elements of science, all right, that are pertinent to research misconduct is this. Science is slow, really, really slow. It's very painful to gather data. It's very difficult to get respondents. It's very difficult to, convince respondents that they should be participating in your research. And after that, you have to analyze the data. After that, you have to publish the thing. After that, it comes back for review. After that, you send it in again. Hopefully it gets published. So science is slow. Science is also hard. Farming is hard, but science, interestingly, is also very hard. All right, many people get their hands dirty. The work involved in science, the work involved in research is tremendous. But you've seen the human condition earlier on. The thing is this, we want things fast, we want things conveniently, we want things easy. That's what we want. All right, and often this is the root of research misconduct. Often this is the root. So the thing is this, we also want to be celebrities. I don't know whether you know this guy. He's really famous, right? So we want to be celebrities also. So we want to be in the limelight. Because why? Publication in a way is publicity. All right. When you publish, you get publicity. When you publish, you get famous. When you publish, you get well known. When you publish, you get fame. Fame, being well known, being recognized, that's limelight. That's what limelight is about. So one example of limelight is this. We'll talk about Hwang Woo-sak later in a while. Hwang Woo-sak was a researcher in Korea. He's still a researcher in Korea. He was honored on a postage stamp. His research area was stem cell research, and he was honored on a postage stamp. Right? You can see this guy who is on a wheelchair, trying to get up, starting to run, starting to jump, and finding happiness. And that's what we want. We want publicity, we want fame, we want to be well known, we want to be famous. All right, and Hwang Woo-sak became famous because his research was featured on a stamp. We want to be Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is much more famous than some politicians. Right? He has prestige, he has fame, he has visibility. A few scientists have attained celebrity status, of course, and one of them is Stephen Hawking. He is more recognizable, he's more visible than, as I've stated, some politicians. Marie Curie, Stephen Hawking, Alan Turing, Srinivasa Ramanujan, John Nash, Charles Darwin, all have got movies made about their lives. And in a way, we want to be like them. So other factors that are important that are pertinent in research misconduct is this. Scientists today are often under great pressure to show experimental success, right? Not just to write papers, they are under pressure to show experimental success. So what is research misconduct? Research misconduct is this: the intentional, knowing or reckless fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism of data or text. It could involve data, or it could involve the text. Being found guilty of research misconduct can have dire consequences. It's very serious, and it can have very serious consequences for scientists, among them being sacked, sent to jail, disgraced as a cheat, or forced to publish corrections to scientific papers. Very, very, very embarrassing. Forced to publish corrections, forced to publish errata to their scientific papers, or even worse, forced to retract their scientific papers. So I'm going to talk about 3 cases. The presentation just started. All right, so this is the first case, Jan Henrik Schön. His area was plastics, electronics, superconductivity, and nanotechnology. The second one, the guy you saw on the stamp, is Woo-sak Hwang, and he worked in the area of stem cell research. And Dietrich Stapel, he worked in the area of psychology. So, how did I choose these 3 cases? I wanted you to have a range of fields. So this guy is in the area of physics, essentially. This guy is in the area of life sciences, and this guy is in the area of arts and social studies and humanities. Okay. Now, I've chosen these not just because they were in different fields, but also their fraud was on an extensive scale. Extensive. And you will see how extensive in a while. So Goldstein was the vice provost of Caltech, California Institute of Technology. All right. So Goldstein mentions 3 factors for scientific misconduct. So he was a vice provost, I think. All right. He was very high up. And because he was so high up in the university, kind of like hierarchy, he was involved in many investigations and inquiries into scientific misconduct. And he says that in nearly all cases, he mentions that, the scientists were under career pressure. They knew or thought they knew the answer to the problem. So since they knew the answer to the problem already, they thought, okay, no need to perform the research. I already know the answer, so I will publish my answer. I already know it. There's no need to do this research and all. All right. Now, the third risk factor is this. They were working in a field where, individual experiments are not expected to be precisely reproducible like life sciences. Right? If you have experiments on 200 rabbits, the 200 rabbits are not going to be exactly the same. All right? So they were working in fields like that. So these were published in his book called On Fact and Fraud. All right? So he mentions that these are the 3 risk factors. I respectfully disagree. And these are my 3 risk factors. LCK is me. So these are my 3 risk factors. Firstly, people who are impatient. They want it now. They want the glory now. They want fame now. They want to be famous now. They want to be prominent now. So this is the first risk factor. The second risk factor is this: people who are lazy. Right? They don't want to do the work. And when we go through the 3 case studies later, look at these 3 risk factors. They were impatient, they were lazy, and the third, people with a mismatched ambition. What is a mismatched ambition? Mismatched ambition is this: people who have high ambition, but they don't want to work for that ambition. So, it's mismatched. The effort and the ambition is mismatched. They have great ambitions, but they don't have the capacity for great work to match that great ambition. So the third risk factor here I've stated is people with a mismatched ambition. All right, so let's look at case number 1. Case number 1 is Jan Henrik Schon, and it happened at Bell Labs. Bell Labs is really prestigious. It was where the transistor was invented. Okay, so Jan Henrik Schon was a German physicist. He was born in 1970. So he got his PhD from the University of Constance in 1997, and his PhD topic was on this material called copper gallium selenide, a very, very complex semiconductor. So he got his PhD in 1997. Look at his publication record. 2000, he publishes 5 papers in Science. Science is one of the most prestigious journals in the world, and 3 in Nature. 2001, publishes 4 papers in Science and 4 in Nature. 2001, he publishes on average 1 research paper every 8 days. This is an amazing record, and he's not just in publishing many papers, 1 research paper every 8 days. He's publishing them in Science, he's publishing them in Nature. Gosh, he's publishing them in the most prestigious journals we all know. If you have such a publishing record, it's not surprising that you win awards. If you're publishing like this at this kind of rate, at this kind of journals, you will win awards. So in 2001, he won awards. 2002 also won awards. And in 2002, late 2002, he nearly won the William Macmillan Prize. Why nearly? Because before they awarded him with this prize, they discovered the fraud. All right. So what was the start? The start was this. When did he start, producing this fraudulent data? So by the 3rd year of his PhD, so he hadn't graduated with his PhD, that this was his 3rd year, he was beginning to cover for the difficulty he had experienced in interpreting his results by making irregular changes to his data. So that was how he started, He started at the 3rd year of his PhD, and he started when he found it difficult to interpret the data. He got data, he got real data, he got authentic data. He found that, hey, it's really difficult to make sense of this data. Why not we make some changes? Later, he found that, hey, it might just be easier to fake blockbuster results than to scalp authentic data into submission. Instead of changing data, why not just create the data? Right? Instead of performing the experiment, then scouting the thing, moving the thing and changing the points and all that, why not just fake it outright? So this was the start. He discovered that faking was easy, sculpting, modifying, adapting was really tough. So his career at Bell Labs was spectacular. He was an intern during his PhD candidature. After that, he became a postdoc at Bell Labs. And after that, he became a staff member. And you see the years here. All right. And this is a spectacular, okay, this is a spectacular career rise. It's saying I've been muted. All right. Anyway, okay. So before the scandal, for more than 2 years, physicists were excited. They were enthralled. They were, kind of spellbound by results coming out of Bell Labs, where researchers had developed a technique to make organic materials behave in an amazing new way as superconductors. When you think of conductors, you think of metals. Metals conduct. Now, research at Bell Labs at that time, they were trying to make organic materials conduct. This was amazing. This was amazing because if the results were real, if it had not been fabricated, we would be looking at plastic electronics. We would be looking at chips that were made of plastic, not silicon. Now, so physicists were all excited. They were spellbound by the results coming out of Bell Labs for 2 years. This was amazing. Okay, enthusiasm quickly gave way to frustration as research groups failed to reproduce the results. So, other universities at other centers, other research centers, physicists tried to replicate his experiments to reproduce the results. And when they couldn't get the same results, they became very, very frustrated. Okay, so the conventions of science are like this. Scientists should describe experiments in enough detail to enable others to replicate them elsewhere. This is a convention of science. All scientists, no matter what field you're working on, what sort of scientific field you're working on, whatever experiment you're doing, you should really be describing experiments in enough detail so that another scientist somewhere else can replicate it. And this is called the principle of reproducibility. It was pioneered by Robert Boyle, and it is the gold standard of acceptance of scientific claims today. Gold standard. And the purpose of this reproducibility, what is the purpose of this whole idea? All right, the purpose of this principle of reproducibility is to put experimental facts on a firm basis, on firm ground. In 2001, Sean announced in Nature that he had produced a transistor on the molecular scale. He claimed to have used a thin layer of organic dye molecules to assemble an electric circuit that, when acted on by electric current, behave as a transistor. If this was true, if this word was true, the big word is if, it would have been the beginning of a move away from silicon-based electronics towards organic electronics. It would revolutionize computing. It would revolutionize mobile phones. It would revolutionize how we use computers. So what started to happen for Sean was this. Very unfortunately for him, or fortunately for us, Sean started to produce contradictions in the heart of his data. So he produced many papers. Remember, he was producing a paper every 8 days or so, and he was fabricating, he was inventing the data. And when he was inventing this data, he started to produce contradictions. And physicists began to notice these contradictions. Hey, this contradicts the other paper. That paper contradicts this other paper. This paper contradicts the other paper. And these contradictions led to discussions, arguments, and a lot of debate during conferences and so on. So physicists from inside and outside Bell Labs called management's attention to several sets of figures published in different papers that bore suspiciously strong similarities to one another. So other than this contradictions, something else began to crop up. people began to start reading his papers because he had become very famous. And when they read his papers, they found that, hey, this figure and this other figure in another paper look exactly the same. They are different papers on different material, on different topics, but the figures are the same. How can that be? So contradicting data, contradictions in the data, he also produced suspicious figures. And, a committee was formed to investigate possible scientific fraud. The committee report was released in September 2002, and of the 24 allegations investigated, Sean had committed scientific misconduct in 16 out of the 24 cases. 6 of the remaining 8 allegations, remember there were 24, so 16 outright scientific fraud. 6 of the remaining 8 allegations were troubling, but they did not produce compelling evidence of wrongdoing. Bell Labs immediately fired Sean. So the consequences are serious. The consequences of research misconduct is absolutely, absolutely serious. Reputation of Bell Labs also took a hit. For the first time in their 77-year history, Bell Labs experienced a case of research misconduct. They had never seen research misconduct before. They were a gold standard. They were a reputable, they were a world-famous lab producing world-famous and Nobel Prize-winning research. The research that gave rise to the transistor got a Nobel Prize. All right, this case comes from this book called Plastic Fantastic, and how the biggest fraud in physics shook the scientific world. Now let's look at case number 2. Case number 2 is from South Korea. So Woo-Sak Hwang was a professor at the Seoul National University and a vet by training, a veterinarian. In 2004, Science, again, it's the most famous journal. Science published a paper in which Hwang claimed to have created an embryonic stem cell line from a cloned human embryo, something that several groups around the world, several groups from different eminent and prominent research centers, famous research centers, were trying to do, but could not do. Now, he published this paper, and in Science, 2005, his group published a second paper describing the development of 11 more such lines. So 2 papers, and these are the 2 papers. So you can see that they're in Science. This is again in Science. Prestigious papers. And I'm showing you, all these because I'm showing you the 2 papers this time because, all these people that co-authored with him, all their careers were tainted. All their careers were, kind of like tainted with research fraud. And they were tainted because they were associated with him. And no, he didn't just affect his own career, he affected the research career of a lot of other people in this list, right? So if these 2 papers, the research in these 2 papers, if they were valid, if they would have represented a significant step forward in human embryonic stem cell research, since they would have demonstrated the feasibility of therapeutic cloning, a technique which holds great promise as a medical therapy. Right? And, if it were valid, it would have put South Korea on the map as a biotechnology epicenter and made Hwang a national hero. But it was not valid. It was a fabrication. Again, it was a fabrication. So here you can see Korea Post issued a postage stamp. This was the one I showed you just now. All right? From a person who is on a wheelchair to a person that can jump. This is therapeutic cloning. How did this transformation occur from a person who is in a wheelchair to a person who is running to a person who is jumping? This happened because of therapeutic cloning. These are the possibilities. So on June 1st, 2005, a whistleblower tipped off the television network Munhwa. All right, and he was really afraid to come out, in the open to make allegations. Why? Because Hwang was a national hero. You just don't go around and say, and heap all sorts of allegations against a national hero. So he decided to do it by whistleblowing. And this Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation, they aired the first program, Ethical Violations, in the way that Hwang recruited egg donors on 2005. Hwang indicated that it had come from 16 donors, so he admitted it. Yes. There were some irregularities, all right? Actually, it did not come from the 16 donors. It came from 2 junior members of his laboratory, which is a no-no. in this sort of research. It's an absolutely unacceptable practice. The end was this: Huang resigned from his position at the Seoul National University. He was removed. He was actually listed by Scientific American as one of the 50 research leaders of the year 2005. He was removed from the list. And the field of embryonic stem cell research was set back in South Korea because political support for this area of research was withdrawn. Right? So other people in this area of research suffered because they didn't get the funding they required. Their funding got cut down, and so on and so forth. All right. Huang was sentenced to 2 years in prison at the Seoul Central District Court after being found of embezzlement and bioethical violations, but cleared of fraud. The court did, however, find Huang guilty of buying human eggs in violation of the country bioethics laws and of embezzling 830 million won of government money. All right. Okay. Other than, affecting the prestige of the institution and all that kind of stuff, research fraud wastes time of other researchers. So this researcher called Ryozo Tori at the Shiga University used large amounts of money, time, and monkey eggs to reproduce Huang's technique. Again, if there's spectacular research, people want to reproduce it to see it for themselves. All right, nothing beats doing it yourself and proving to yourself that it works. So this guy, Ryozo Tori, did that. He spent a lot of grant money to reproduce the technique. And he says that forgiving Huang and recognizing him as a researcher would be an absolute mistake. Huang is back, this time in another research foundation. Now, case number 3. Okay, case number 3 is involves Diederik Stapel. All right, and Diederik Stapel is a Dutch social psychologist and a dean at the School of Social and Behavioral Science at Tilburg University. So this happened in Europe. So the first one was Sean. It happened at Bell Labs in the United States. The second one was Huang, which was in South Korea. This is in Europe, Tilburg University. Stapel faked or manipulated data in at least 55 publications. Found indications of fraud in 11 other papers from his work. Fired last year by Tilburg University after his fraud was first revealed. So again, he was fired. The fraud involved something like 55 publications plus another 11 suspicious papers. And who uncovered the fraud? 3 of his own graduate students. His own graduate students became very suspicious when Diederik Stapel supplied them the data without allowing them to participate in the actual research. When they ran statistical tests, they found it absolutely too good to be true and went straight to the Tilburg University's dean with their suspicions. And when Stapel was asked, what happened? What happened? You are famous. You are the dean. Remember, he was a dean of the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences at Tilburg University. So he was asked, what happened? He said that he loved social psychology, but he had been frustrated by the messiness of experimental data. Experimental data, he said, was very, very messy, and he was really, really frustrated by that. He could not make clear conclusions. So possible reasons for fraud was laziness on his part, ambition, and of course, a short attention time span. All right. So, this is all for my talk. I have actually a lot more slides, but I think the time is up. So, thank you for coming to the presentation. All right. And of course, again, to Professor Gupta and the others, please, accept my appreciation for being invited. All right. Thank you. And if you're interested, these are some of the references that I have made use of. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Lee. And now I will request Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala to ask the question.
Thank you very much, Tarun sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Lee sir. You have related a very good story, and you have narrated a good story and related to the topic about diabetes and insulin. And with your permission, I would like to ask you some of the questions put in the chat box. May I, sir?
Sure.
Okay, sir. So the first question is, why do many intermediary person or firm offer to write thesis, articles, and even give guarantee to published in so-called ranked journals with business motto publishers?
Because it involves money. It's attractive because it involves money, it involves fame, it involves reputation, you know, and of course, all these things come easy if you get a company that is going to write this thing for you. If you're going to write a paper for you, write a thesis for you, you're getting it the easy way, right? So the root of at least this evil is money.
Yes.
Sir. So one more question related to it.
Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala?
Asked by
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. One more question related to it, sir. One of the participants has asked, are these not misconduct in academia and research? Is it not unethical?
You mean getting somebody else to write? Of course it
Yes,
is.
sir.
Of course it is. Definitely. If you have written the article and got an English expert to look through the sentences, to to smooth out the edges in your expression, that's a completely different thing. But if you engage somebody to write the research article from scratch, that's absolutely a no go.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Over to Tarun, sir. Tarun sir, muted है, sir.
Okay, now I would like to call Dr. Manish Kumar Agarwal from UK to ask the question, please, sir. Dr. Manish Kumar Agarwal, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would like to again welcome Dr. Lee, as really it was a very nice experience to listen to you and all the participants associated with this webinar, international webinar, appreciated your lecture. So again, I thank you so much, sir. And we will gain too much knowledge on diabetes and its causes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please, sir, please tell me.
If you allow me, I have two questions. If you allow, I can ask.
Yes, please, sir.
What drives people to misconduct, and how to make a good research design?
Oh, I couldn't hear that actually. I apologize. I couldn't hear that.
Okay, sir. I repeat this. What drives people to commit research misconduct, and how to make a good research design?
There are many causes for research misconduct, because it's a complicated, human being is a complicated person, a complicated organism, if you like. Greed, impatience, vanity, and so on. A lot of reasons contribute to research misconduct. Laziness is one of them. And wanting the easy way out, of course, is one of them. But I think, education on what to do and what not to do is critical. It's really, really important to teach students, researchers as well, exactly what is research misconduct, and how to spot it, how to report it, how to whistle blow, and all these things. I think with these things in place, we will find it happening a lot less.
Yes, Dr. Agarwal, can I answer some points here in this research design?
Yes, yes, yes. Please, sir. Please, Dr. Gupta, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Agarwal asked regarding research design. Especially, I'm talking in terms of social sciences and commerce and management, not in science. See, in these three areas, you have to give a lot of inputs to the scholars for the research design. Like, let's start in a research paper or a research book. 7, 8 topics to be covered in a research design or research planning or blueprint of the research. Like first, let's start with the introduction. In the introduction, you have to highlight what is the requirement, what are the objective, what are the things to be done in a research. Then we should go for the literature survey or existing literature. If existing literature is good, at least we have to scan 80 to 70 papers or 70 to 80 papers on that area and the latest area also. So that is also part of your research planning. Then we have to create the theoretical framework or research model or testing of new hypothesis or testing of design or something. Then we have to go for these research questions. Research questions are very, very important in the research design. Then we should go for the methods. Methods means your research methodology, sample size, sample design, hypothesis testing, many things are required. And then findings, conclusion, implications, then referencing, etc. So proper training is required for the researchers or for the teachers or who are going to publish the papers. And I fully agree with Professor Lee. Now a lot of research misconduct is happening in everywhere, every part of the world. In maybe in UK also, maybe US also, maybe India also, maybe Australia also. The people are taking doing the outsourcing of the research paper and other things, even PhD thesis, even I came to know in India also, maybe Oman also, the assignments are outsourced by the students. So a lot of things are going on, but we have to control check now. Even after software, still you can, that only the way is questioning, discussion. The research monitor supervisor has to discuss with the students or the teachers. So after discussing, you can understand whether this is genuine research or is a fake research or misconducted research. That is the only solution. Only monitoring and controlling and checking are three solutions for this research. So these are my opinion. Thank you very much. And thanks to Professor Lee. He's my old friend from 2012. So we have got good friendship of 8 years. And he is the thorough gentleman and is very good friend and very nice person. He's always humbled. Whenever I call any WhatsApp or email, he say, yes, Professor, no problem.
Thank you, Professor Gupta.
Yeah. So, and thanks to the organizers. Yeah. Thanks to the organizers also, and I fully attend this session also. Normally I attend half, but today I attend from beginning to end. So thank you very much, sir, and thank you to all persons and Manish ji also, Shrivastava ji also, Jeevan Jhunjhunwala also, and President sir and other participants, students from Oman, students from Singapore, students from India, deep faculty members from India also. So thanks to everyone to make successful this program. Thank you very much, sir. Thank
you, Dr. S.L. Gupta, sir.
You
We
so
will
much.
always be grateful to you for your cooperation. And now, not the end of this meeting. Now I would like to call Professor Shekhar Sharma, chairman of this forum, to come for a vote of thanks. Professor Shekhar Sharma, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun.
Thank you so much, sir. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody. Today's webinar has been a wonderful experience thanks to the impeccable insights shared with us by Dr. Lee Chu Kyong, Program Director, B. Kim B, School of Communication and Information, Nanyang Technology University, Singapore. I would like to thank him from the bottom of my heart for having graced the webinar with his presence and best bestowing upon us the gift of his presence. My special thanks to Dr. Eshal Gupta from Oman to introduce Mr. Dr. Lee with this forum. I would also like to thank all the members Forum of Commerce and Management Studies, most notably Dr. Gagan Kukreja, Dr. Jeevan Jhunjhunwala, Dr. Manish Agrawal, Dr. Kamlesh Bharadwaj, Dr. G. Vijayalakshmi, Dr. Shmita Giri, Pratha K. Nara, Shashidhar Kelur, Neeraj Upadhyay, along with the ever hard-working team of Dr. Tarun Shrivastava and Trapti Singh for their untiring efforts towards the successful organization of this webinar. At last, not least, I would also like to extend my vote of thanks towards all the participants who have graced us from different corners of India and the world for having had the patience and curiosity for such an inquisitive topic, which is rather rarely explored, who chose to attend this webinar despite the difficult times we find ourselves in. Your continued support and presence is a source for our quest for bringing the fruits of academic discussions to the comfort of your homes, no matter the situation. By God's grace, your continued support will take us a long way in strengthening the standard of commerce and management academia in this country and beyond. Thank you all once again for the wonderful participation, and thank you to our keynote speaker, Dr. Lee, for blessing us with their presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Now, at the conclusion of the program, there will be the national anthem of India. With that, the program will be concluded. Now, the national anthem of India. आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप सभी लोगों ने हमारा प्रोग्राम को अटेंड किया है। जल्दी ही सभी लोगों के पास सर्टिफिकेट पहुंच जाएंगे। प्रोफेसर ली, प्रोफेसर एस एल गुप्ता सर, चेयरमैन सर, डॉक्टर मनीष अग्रवाल सर, जीवन झुंझुनवाला सर, तृप्ति सिंह, आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We are waiting for next.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.